Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our first 2025 Level the Field webinar on neurodiversity and entrepreneurship. So the Level the Field campaign, which focuses on making the agricultural industry more equitable and inclusive, is now running into its second year. And this year, the spotlight is shifting from women in agriculture to neurodiversity. My name is Liz Haynes, and I'm leading the campaign for Farmers Weekly. It's a subject that's close to my heart because I am a dairy farmer with ADHD, and I'm in the middle of a Nuffield scholarship on the subject of neurodiversity. So tonight we're going to be focusing on the subject of entrepreneurship, and we've got 4 brilliant panelists here to talk to us about that tonight and share their experience of setting up their own businesses. Hopefully you might have already seen the research that was published by Farmers Weekly at the beginning of the year. It was the first nationwide survey into neurodiversity in our industry, and entrepreneurship came through really strongly as a theme, with 38% of those respondents who identified as neurodivergent saying that entrepreneurialism was a strength that was helpful to them in their farming business. So tonight we're going to be delving a bit more into that subject and what that looks like in those 4 very different farming businesses. But before we kick off, I'm just going to start with a little bit of housekeeping and then introduce our brilliant panelists, and then we can dive into the discussion. So after the discussion, we're going to be opening things up to the audience for questions. We've got some advanced questions we've received, but you can ask a question now at any time. Just type it in the box that you should be able to see at the bottom of your screen. And then I'll be directing those to the panel at the end. The webinar is expected to last for about an hour, and afterwards it's going to be available for you to view on demand, and you'll get an email to let you know when the recording is available. So right, let's get to know everyone. So first up, we've got Ellen Firth from Rhythin in Denbighshire. Ellen runs a flower farm and floristry business alongside breeding pedigree sheep. She grows 90% of the flowers used in weddings and events on their farm, and she uses manure and wool from the sheep and helps the slug control with her rare breed ducks. So welcome, Ellen. Next up, we have Helen Wyman, who's from Yorkshire. Helen is the founder of Cultivate Success, which is a program dedicated to connecting and empowering individuals across the food, farming and horticultural system. She's a 2022 Nuffield Scholar, and Helen's passion for leadership, mentoring and professional development drives her work. So thank you for joining us, Helen. Our third panellist is Ben Taylor-Davies. Ben was born and raised on a farm in Ross-on-Wye. Ben had a successful career as an agronomist before his son was unfortunately involved in a severe horse accident back in 2012. That had a profound effect on Ben's life, and in 2015 he embarked on a Nuffield Scholarship looking at blackgrass. And that was the beginning of his journey into regenerative agriculture and putting the fun back into farming. Amen to that. So we're looking forward to hearing your story too, Ben. And next up, we have Lucy George, who's here from the Vale of Glamorgan. In 2014, Lucy transitioned from harvesting strawberries to growing tea on her family farm, which is now known as the Peterston Tea Estate. What started as an experimental project soon became many thousands of plants. In 2023, Peterston Tea beat stiff competition to win the Best Food and Drink Producer in Wales award with BBC Cymru Wales. And Lucy is also part of my Nuffield cohort, and this time last year we were actually in Brazil together. So welcome, Lucy. So now I'm going to invite the panelists to just tell me a little bit more about their businesses themselves. So let's start with you, Ellen. Can you tell me a bit more about Firth Flock Flowers and how you came to set up the business?
I think you did a really good job of covering it in your sort of summary, but I suppose in terms of how I started the business, I left school and really wanted to expand the farm at home, but there weren't really the opportunities in our local area, especially as someone who's not from Wales. So I was looking at sort of how I earn a living off a really small space, and that's where flowers came in. I really wanted all the elements of the existing farm business to play a part. So the sheep play a part in the business with the manure and the wool, and then the ducks are the slug control. So the business has sort of kind of grown out of that idea of how to make money off a really small space and use what we've already got, really. So yeah, that's how I've ended up doing what I do.
Amazing. And you have a role off the farm as well that's related to neurodiversity, is that right?
Yeah, so I have sort of fingers in many pies, as many people would say, but I work quite a bit in autism research. So on sort of in an advisory role, really, on research panels as someone with lived experience. So ensuring that research is ethical and really considered when it's going out to neurodivergent participants, and just having that sort of slightly fresh set of eyes rather than kind of it just being looked at by scientists and specialists, being able to offer that sort of lived experience view of things, really.
Awesome. I think me and you need to have an offline chat about Nuffield things. So cool. Thank you for sharing, Ellen. Brilliant. Right. Let's have Helen now. Could you tell me a little bit more about Cultivate Success and why you think the industry needs this program?
Of course I can. Yeah, and again, great summary earlier, Liz. Yeah, so I set up Cultivate off the back of my Nuffield, and I had a proper job at the time and everything when I was doing my Nuffield, but then you tend to find what you love, and then you tend to find your lives living two separate lives, like the life you have at work and the thing you want to do. So I decided that there's no better time than the present, well, 2 years ago now, to resign from my job and set the business up, because as you found through your Nuffield and everyone on this call who's done one, is like you start and then you're like, oh, actually the industry does need this, and actually we can make a difference. I know it sounds really cheesy and like a bit like that, but I want to make a difference, and I know the power of connecting people, and I also understand the power of running a professional mentoring program. So we don't just randomly put people together. We do personality testing, and we're developing our matching criteria all the time. So we did a soft launch in September, and we've run 3 events since. We've got 3 more in April and May, and we've got about 160 people in the program so far. So it's gaining traction, and we're getting lots of great results out of it. So
awesome progress. And do you think the program is something that's of particular benefit to neurodivergent people, or that it's just something that benefits the industry as a whole and anyone who's working with people?
I think it benefits the industry as a whole, if I'm honest. But because of the way that my brain works, I'm also very conscious of the way that other people who come into the program also may have brains that work in different ways too. And we're really keen that what I sometimes struggle with, not that maybe people don't realize, is going into networking events and going, oh, would you be my mentor? I would like never ask anyone that. But this is a way to do it that doesn't mean that people have to put themselves into those uncomfortable situations. It's like online dating. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to go to a bar anymore and ask somebody. You can do it on an app. Not that we do that, but do you know what I mean? It reduces barriers to entry.
Absolutely.
And makes it more equal across the board.
Awesome. Thanks, Helen. Ben, would you like to tell us a bit more about your farm? Because I know there's lots of different things going on there.
Yeah. I mean, going back to a, what should I say, conventional farmer, conventional agronomist, rather quite bored with life, like most farms, in plenty of debt, with an ADHD brain, always spiraling the wrong way. I always find with an ADHD brain, you can feed it in 2 ways. You can feed it full of negativity or feed it full of positivity, both, and the one is the route to self-destruct. Then, as you said in my intro, my son got kicked in the head by a horse and fought for his life for an awful long time. And sadly, that fed the spiral of depression to a point where, in the end, my wife kind of said, you need to go and get your life sorted, and suggest you go and try and do a Nuffield and see if you can kick yourself out of this idea. And like you said, I did my Nuffield on blackgrass, but for those, and there's a few Nuffield scholars here today, will realise that Nuffield is probably 3% of your topic and 97% of a learning journey and a living experience and everything else that you do. Mm-hmm. And I travel the world being inspired by people about regenerative agriculture, by soil, by people. And the thing that really appealed to me is they were using their brains and feeding their brains with exciting things and challenging their own brains, that started this whole reversal of this downward spiral in my own brain, and got home and started feeding it with all the good things of how do I do the opposite of what I have been doing? How can I feed my dopamine hits that I need, which was often buying a tractor I couldn't afford. And in actual fact, could I get my dopamine hit out of watching my goats eat my docks, and that sort of thing, and using different animals, using different techniques, using so much on the farm. It's almost so much to go into now that we have on the farm, from agroforestry to vineyard, to added value, to making pasta, to having a shop, to having a conference centre, to having glamping, to having a restaurant, to having pop-up restaurants. All of these things all feeding into one another and feeding my brain ultimately with just positivity. So it's an amazing, resilient thing. Is a ADHD brain. It's a superpower as long as you feed it in the way that you can, big yourself up and enjoy life. So that's a brief intro, really.
That's boggling my mind just thinking about all those different enterprises you've just listed. But just tell me a bit about how you've sort of leveraged working with other people to make that possible, because you're not doing it all yourself, right?
In actual fact, the way we work on our farm, we actually, it's only myself and my wife, but we drive everything through quite incredible efficiencies, to the point where everything, even the chicken tractor, will drive itself. So that it moves itself around the field, all through innovation of using caravan movers that we saw moving caravans by remote control. We thought, well, why don't we put that on our chicken tractor so Helen can press the button and move the chicken tractor, that sort of thing. So the flock of sheep we got are ex-Lanas, so they self-shedding wool, very good gut health, very good foot disease control, and all of that sort of thing. So they're very, very low input. And what we found is actually the two of us, I'll be perfectly honest, my wife far more than me, because I think women in agriculture need to be celebrated far more. Because men, we're glory hunters. We load the dishwasher, we tell everybody and expect somebody to say thank you. Women just get on with the job and just carry on and do such a great job. So I've sort of got the brain of driving the efficiency to make sure all these things run like clockwork. And then when we look at the businesses, like a kefir business that we have on the farm, the water kefir, we invite people to come onto the farm with the same sort of ethos as we have. So got to be, environmental based or health based and that sort of thing. And we become partners. It's a bit like Dragon's Den sort of thing. People turn up with a business proposition. We provide a premises, so to speak, and a bit of an agreement. And they carry on as business owners. We're pretty much silent shareholders as people, and watch people flourish. And it's another rewarding thing to see people having their own little business that you've helped. And some of them on our farm at the moment are doing exceptionally well, and it's really quite exciting that we're part of that journey. So, yeah, awesome. I don't want to hog the whole.
No, but it sounds like a really positive place. So that's really cool to hear. Thank you, Ben. Lucy, can you tell us a bit more about Peterson Tea and how you're juggling everything with your Nuffield Scholarship that you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's hard to follow that one, Ben, to be fair. It's well, I mean, Peterson Tea, it came about. I had a farm. I took over the farm back in 2002 after university. I had a decent career and then jettisoned it for taking over the farm, basically, when that came up, and been running it ever since. I immediately grew it quite fast, admittedly. Expanded what was then an ice cream production business, grew the fruit production, built a farm shop, had a lot of employees. We had 17 full-timers at one point, so it was a fairly decent sized business. And then typically woke up one morning and just questioned what I was doing, and pretty much closed it all down over a couple of years, and sort of scaled right back and sort of spent a few years trying to figure out what I wanted to do, which was mainly to get back outside and sort of, challenge myself. As Ben alluded to, it's very much sort of feeding yourself sort of more positive sort of benefits. I think I'd been through that sort of depressed phase of, everything had sort of closed down on me, which I'd done myself, but it's very hard to recognise that at times. And then, came up with the idea of growing tea. I saw it was being grown in Cornwall, and a lady had taken some cuttings up to Scotland. So that was good enough reason, basically, to give it a go. And I've sort of fallen in love with it as a project, mainly because there is so much to learn and so much to do and so many challenges and ways you can sort of advance. Sort of bring different technologies into it. So I'm looking sort of across different sectors to how it can all help the tea industry. And yeah, so for me, it's absolutely perfect because there's no end of learning and sort of different things you can do with it. So.
Yeah, and do you think the Nuffield has kind of fed into that? How's that going? Have you had any trips recently?
I've had a recent one to Europe. So really, I'm actually leading the European Tea Growers Association at the moment. So working across Europe, trying to encourage sort of tea growers, trying to raise consumer awareness of sort of the basically sustainable aspects of tea grown within Europe. So yeah, it's a bit busy time at the moment.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for introducing yourselves. So let's sort of move into the broader discussion now about the kind of entrepreneurship theme. So I'd like to start by talking about the strengths of neurodivergent entrepreneurs in the industry. This is something that came through really strongly in the survey, with 75% of the neurodivergent respondents identifying skills like problem solving and creativity as sort of strengths that they had that were useful to them as entrepreneurs. Also things like big picture thinking, resilience under pressure, hyperfocus. So, you know, what do you guys think about that? How does your way of thinking sort of shape your approach to business? Who's going to go first? I'm going to pick on someone. If not, Ellen, how does your sort of way of thinking approach shape your approach?
Just before I do my way of thinking, what you know what's really interesting about all those introductions is that none of us, as you probably picked these people particularly, but like nobody runs a normal business. We're all running businesses where, oh, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this and do this. Then we just go and do it, not particularly scared. Well, we have some scaredness, obviously, but like, yeah, it's like blindness to the pitfalls sometimes is what I find. But it doesn't matter because I enjoy it and I keep doing it. So I think I don't necessarily overthink things. And I don't necessarily see the risk, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And yeah, just a lot of energy just to keep going, which is great fun, and it means we can create a creative business, which is nice.
Do you think that sort of risk-taking approach is a key part of it then?
Yeah, because if you're going to go from I was employed for 20 odd years, not in the same job, but you know what I mean, I've always been employed, and to at the age of however it was 39, 40, just to sack it all in and start a startup off the basis of an idea, pretty risky, to be honest, but yeah, it pays off in the end, doesn't it?
What about everyone else? Does that resonate with you guys? You're on mute, Ellen. Super.
Okay, I'll just add in there, like from what Helen said, it's very much, I think, within agriculture as a whole, it's a very risky sort of career to be in, full stop. You know, you've got so many challenges with, yeah, never-ending challenges. So there's always that element of risk. So I think that's probably like a big factor with level of neurodivergency in the sector. So
yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. Sorry, Ellen, you're off mute now. What were you going to say?
I think also we've probably all got a lot of business ideas in our heads as well. You know, there's so many ways that we could all take our businesses that we've got sort of in our back pockets, and it's sort of choosing the ones to develop, isn't it? I think there's no shortage of ideas. That can be
the hardest thing sometimes, 100%. Yeah. Ben, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I think the biggest risk is not doing anything different.
Yes.
I identify that I was having a chat with somebody today, funny enough, and I said the problem with farming is we buy brands onto farm all day. And a brand could be insurers, it could be banks, it could be tractors, it could be agrochemicals, it could be anything that enters the farm is all branded, and anything branded comes with profitability. The reason why everybody can alter and offer a brand is they add value and they therefore have profit. Then we are almost foolish to then buy a brand to produce a commodity of which we have absolutely no control over the price at all. And the minute it leaves the farm gate, somebody buys it off us and creates a brand and adds value to it. And that is a huge risk if all we're doing, therefore, is supplying people to make profit on the back of the work we're doing. So listening to everybody on this, we're all getting closer to the consumer and wrestling back a little bit of that control, a little bit of that profit, a little bit of that knowledge, And I think that's the really important thing. And if we only go back probably 2 generations where we sold all our produce to the local village, you know, and all that, that was the face of how things worked. And we've become far removed now. Whose fault that is irrelevant, really. The idea from my point of view is to make sure, you know, the general public seem all very scary, but once you get to know them, funny enough, they're not as scary as you think, and therefore actually extracting some profit out of them. And it's amazing, and I'm sure everybody would nod to say that as soon as you set up these little businesses, the support you get from the general public, seeing you try and do something a bit different, trying to make a go of things. I find it amazing, the amount of people that come to our farm desperately trying to help us and support what we're doing and all that sort of thing. So again, it feeds into that need of a bit more dopamine.
Sure. I'm just interested in what you said back then about taking back control. Is that something that resonates with everyone? Like, I know for me, one of the reasons why I wanted to give up my sort of office job and set up my own farming business was because the perception, maybe not the reality, but that I would have more control. You know, how do other people feel about that? Is that something that's important to you, sort of being in control of your own destiny and sort of steering your own ship?
Yes, yes, definitely. I like the ability to have ideas and put them into action without going through 5 board meetings and getting approval of people who don't get it, or don't get it in what it looks like in my head, not necessarily don't get it. And for me as well, it's about the fact that because my job now is still pretty desk based. You know, I do a lot sat here, but I can do it at 9 o'clock at night for 3 hours. I don't need to have the green Teams light on between 9 to 5. I don't feel tied to the desk. And if I don't feel like working, I don't work anymore. Whereas I used to sit here and I did work, but it used to just, you know what I mean, negatively affect me in the massive ways. And you just feel, then you kick yourself for not doing enough and all the rest of it. So I love being in control of my own destiny. It makes me much happier.
And that comment you made about other people sort of not understanding your vision in your head, is that something you find easy now to communicate your vision? And the same to the other panelists. Do you find it easy to communicate your vision for your business and your strategy, or is that something you have to work hard at?
Well, for me, there's just me, so it's fine. So it's much easier. But yeah, hopefully we present in a way that, do you know what I mean, people outside understand. But yeah, the fact that I don't have a big team above me or next to me is very helpful for me. Yeah. What
about everyone else?
I definitely struggle. One of the things I find hardest is being able to put stuff into words and get it across to people in a way that I feel that they understand it. And I worked my own for years, and then I now have an amazing PA who does all my admin, who is an absolute lifesaver. But that adjustment was horrific. And to like take, you know, I had this business that was doing well, but I was really struggling in so many aspects. And to be then able to take like this whole business plan out of my head and communicate that to someone else was so difficult. And like build that relationship to be able to work together really well. But in, you know, it would keep me awake at night going, you know, how do I be a better boss? How do I communicate this better? But now
how did you come out the other side of that then?
Yeah, so basically we were in the middle of a grant application, and over the sort of 4 weeks of her starting to work with me, we had loads of conversations about stuff. I was just dropping bits in, and I went, here are the questions, fill them in. And a lot of those questions are sort of describing your business, I suppose. And she sent them back to me, and she just filled them in so perfectly. And immediately it was like this huge weight was lifted, because she'd grasped where I was coming from, and had taken this massive admin task off my plate. And so from then on, it's just been seamless. And, you know, I think we're a good match in that we communicate very similarly. And, you know, it's just so nice now to have that like teammate to discuss stuff with. Whereas in the past it was just me. So it's an adjustment, but so worth it.
Worth going through the pain barrier. And do you mind me asking, did you disclose to her that you were neurodivergent when you first started working together?
Yes. So in the job application, I said I have ADHD and autism. It's something I'm very, very open about in my day-to-day life and business. It's just because it's something I feel really important. I just feel it's important to be open with people, and I'm very open about it personally. So yeah, even in the job application, I said I've got autism and ADHD, and no matter how much I try and how many training courses I go on, there are some things I cannot do and I need help. And yeah, everyone was very happy with that. I was looking for someone with sort of experience of it. So yeah, I was very open the whole way.
That's a really refreshing approach, I think. Cool. Yeah. So that sort of leads quite well actually into the next topic, which I wanted to talk about some of the challenges and the barriers, because while I love what Ben said about, neurodiversity being a superpower, I think it is important to reflect that it does come with some challenges too. Life can be a bit of a roller coaster for me, certainly anyway. So I'd like to ask, what are the biggest challenges you've all faced as entrepreneurs? Who's going to go first? Ben, hit me up.
Yeah. Interesting enough, probably getting people to understand your vision, which is what we've just been talking about. Funny enough, it's so clear in your own head, and then you open your mouth, and out comes a load of verbal diarrhea, essentially, and everyone looks at you as if you've got 3 heads or 4 heads even, and you're like, I can't. And then comes the frustration that you can't believe people can't see what's in your sort of head, sort of thing. And I think that is. The word frustration, I think, is something that probably is the hardest thing to control when it comes to setting up business, being entrepreneurship, because if you surround yourself, and most of us are, let's be honest, with partners that aren't neurodivergent, and therefore trying to sell your vision in your head, and they're looking at you as if to say. I'm very lucky now. I mean, I've been married for an awful long time, 26, 27 years. And Helen's now at the point where she just says, I'm sure it's excellent. Just drip feed me the bits I need to know at the times I need to know them, and we'll push on, which is fantastic kind of thing. And I think that's exactly possibly where people need to be with you. But when I was in employment, oh my goodness, I mean, when I was being taught A plus B equals C, and I was going, I can't even see how that even comes to F, let alone anywhere near C, and trying to explain how I was seeing these things. I think that's why you're far better off being the employee, the person at the top of the tree, so to speak. That, like you said, you can work the hours you need to work. You really do. And when you switch on, you're switched on. But when you're switched off, unfortunately, you just can't take anything in, and you're like, I'm not interested. So, yeah, there we go.
So you found what works for you. Yeah. What other challenges or barriers have you guys experienced?
For me, it's I find paperwork is a real issue for me, because I don't like doing it, so I avoid it, and it just builds up, and then it becomes completely insurmountable. And I kind of overcomplicate it. I think because I like doing things to a sort of set standard, and because I don't enjoy doing it, I just really struggle to sort of meet my own internal targets, basically, with things. And then it's so easy to fall into that sort of vicious cycle of sort of, knowing that you're behind, and it all snowballs from there, basically, as anyone who's probably still waiting for emails from me knows all too well. But I think sort of on the other side from that, I think one of the greatest benefits of it is, as a lot of people are mentioning here, the ability to do your own thing with your business. Like, you can work when you want to work, and you can do the jobs that you feel are necessary then. And to some extent, I think you've got a way of looking at things slightly differently. So it's probably a big advantage from that.
I think that paperwork topic is huge. It's certainly one that I really struggle with. So if anyone has got any strategies that have helped them on that side of things, aside from the PA, I would, be all ears to hear those.
Definitely delegate, Liz, because you used to keep the only thing. Well, many things keep me awake at night, but doing the books, never done them before. Scared I was going to get them wrong. Literally, we're a small business. It would literally take me like half an hour a week to do them. Couldn't do them. Got a bookkeeper in. She comes once every 3 months, spends 2 hours here. Don't have to worry about it. I get a cleaner in. Like, the house is tiny. Only takes for an hour a fortnight, but I physically do. I don't have to think about it. And it just frees my brain to do all the other random stuff my brain does, and I don't have to worry about do you know what I mean? Is the sink clean? I mean, like, do you know what I mean? Or like, are the books being done? And then I've employed Sarah Evans, who, as Ellen's PA, was like, well, she's not my PA, but she works with me, but she obviously lives with Will Evans, also a well-known ADHD person. So she's like, well, I can live with Will, probably can cope with 2 of you. So it's like just taking the load off to allow our brains to go and do the things that our brains are good at. It's worth it. Do you know what I mean? The 20 quid I pay the cleaner just to get it off my mind, because otherwise I'd worry about it. So
I think it's definitely a release, isn't it? Once you kind of acknowledge that and you say, do you know what? I'm just not good at organizing things, or I'm not good at clean and tidying things, and that's fine. That's just not my skill set, and I'm going to, you know, delegate that to someone else. Absolutely. There's no shame in that whatsoever.
I'd be interested to know from the panel as well. I struggle with repetitive things. Yes. So like your cleaning, like the bookkeeping, that's the things I really struggle with. I mean, I never forget building the chicken tractor at home, and I was so excited. I built this thing, and it was all mobile, walked itself, did all that sort of thing. Woke up the Saturday morning, went and collected the eggs, and life was great. Sunday morning, what do you mean I got to go and collect the eggs again? And before I knew it, I was like, this is the worst. Whereas my wife loves doing that, and I mean, she loves the routine. And you need to find people that are brilliant at routines. That when I don't, me personally, I'm dreadful at doing the same thing. It would, melt my brain.
I mean, I'm the same with milking cows, which is slightly problematic for a dairy farmer. Like once in a while, I really enjoy milking the cows, or in the summer when the weather is nice and the cows march through the parlour really fast because they're excited to go out for some fresh grass and you can have the music on. I love milking cows, but in the autumn when they're full up of silage and they're plodding through the parlour like snails, it's the worst task on earth. So yeah, I feel you there. And I don't really know what the answer to that one is, but apart from, you know, I'm very lucky that I have a team that shares that job out. And so it's not only me that has to do it. So I guess it comes back to that delegation piece, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So on that same subject, what other kind of support structures or accommodations have helped you with making your businesses a success?
I'm putting... making peace with my brain that it's fine to work in the way that we work. So it sounds very small, but actually it's kind of a big thing. And that will make the business more successful by being at peace with my brain working as it is, if that makes sense. So small thing, but there we go.
Small but huge, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, for 20 odd years of my life, I was trying to conform to all my friends and that sort of thing, and I just thought I couldn't work out whether I was thick or they were thick, but there was certainly a big problem. And like you said, the relief when, in actual fact, it was 2 friends of mine sat me down and said, "Listen, Ben, you're just unique and amazing, different. It doesn't mean you're wrong and we're wrong, but and that was that was the first time the penny dropped that actually we could all be sort of contributing good and that sort of thing, and that was a massive change in my life. That, like you say, at peace with your own mind, and once you realise it's not an illness, it's quite the opposite. I think that's a massive thing.
I didn't realise until I met Liz on, when was it, 18 months ago, on a team call. So I just thought I didn't fit in and I was weird and I just couldn't be managed and all the rest of it. Right? Do you know what I mean? And then Liz said she had a big pile of unopened letters on her desk that she couldn't open. And I was like, I'm like that. Everyone takes the mick out because I physically can't open the post. It makes me feel physically sick. And she's like, I think, yeah, you might want to, in the nice possible way, Helen. So it was genuinely revolutionary conversation for me.
Oh, wow.
So there you go, Liz.
Didn't know that. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, we've all had those light bulb moments somewhere, I guess. Awesome. Cool. Let's shift on now to community and collaboration. I don't know what everyone else thinks about this, but something I've sort of experienced is that a lot of neurodivergent people can be very sort of purpose driven. And I'm wondering if you can tell me, is that something that's a part of your business, sort of connecting with or benefiting your community, either locally or in the wider industry? And how do you think that sort of links back?
I think I struggled probably to build community, mainly because I'm kind of in a bit of an odd camp of having very much a farm agricultural business, but very different as well. And then being in the sort of the horticulture industry, probably being much younger than a lot of people. So I've really struggled with that, but have found that I've sort of found business owners locally who I get on with really well, and we do a lot of collaboration together. And in many ways, that's been a really big strength, because we'll do workshops together and they can take off the pressure socially. So they can do that sort of chit chat with people during workshops that I'm not very good at, and I could do the more teaching side of things. So I found that really helpful in kind of building that community of small business owners. And ultimately, unless you've run a business, you know, I'm from a family of people with very sensible, ordinary jobs, and just to be able to have that conversation with the business owners about, you know, how are you getting on, and sharing the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, because they understand it. And I don't think you really necessarily have that full understanding of what it's like to run a business without having done it.
Absolutely. What about you, Ben? Is that something that's important to you? Oh, you're on mute, Ben.
I'm just having to repay for my Premier Inn Wi-Fi.
Oh no!
I'm just plugging in some details a bit quick. I'll come back to you.
Do you want to let someone else answer then? Helen, you let's hear your thoughts on sort of community and collaboration.
In terms of where to start, so the business that we build is the key part of it is building community, because I do see the value in connecting people. I spent most of my career going out on farm visits, and you see the loneliness firsthand, not in everybody, but you see it in a lot of people. And you also see very small echo chambers. If you interview a load of people within the same area, they all have the same right or wrong misconceptions about policy, about whatever it is we're talking about. So we were really keen in that we tried to break those down by connecting people across industries, across the different silos that we all sit in. So community and purpose driven is why we're here, because honestly, you don't do it for any other reason. We're here to try and just connect people and just grow communities outside the current ones that are there.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm back now.
Well done, Ben.
But so in terms of community, that's one of the massive things important for our farm. Is we've opened up about 8.5 miles of new walks, all with interpretation boards. And what's also brilliant is when you go to the area of outstanding natural beauty that we in, or FIPL, Farming and Protected Landscape, or the RPA, DEFRA, various funding pots are all desperate to educate, inform the landscape. So it allows me to put notice boards all over the farms, various picnic sites have all been paid for and that sort of thing, and it's awesome. And then of course we've got this little farm shop cafe, you know, exit through the gift shop if you don't mind, and all that sort of thing. And it's just lovely to see people walking around the farm enjoying, you know, we've got a bluebell wood that was inaccessible to anybody. Currently we've made it accessible to all, and even now wheelchairs is our next thing, is to make sure we can have literally access to all around the farm. So that's the future plan, because it's just great to see people enjoying what I get to enjoy every day of my life, really.
Fab. And Lucy, I'm guessing the tea community is quite a small community within horticulture in the UK, but how does that kind of work for you in your business?
I don't really, sort of pretty much going solo as far as that goes. I think what it's done as the business very much originally, as I said, I employed quite a lot of people, and now with business as it is, it's given me the ability to turn around and say that, you know what, that actually makes me quite uncomfortable as a person, and I really struggle with that as a person, and I'm better off with a small team, much sort of more niche business, which is more specialized basically. But what it has done, I think, if going through the sort of ups and lows of mental health struggles along the way, it's actually opened my eyes really for when people come to the farm and they see the tea and they sort of get involved. It's very tactile, you know, so when they sort of literally have hands on the product and they're helping to pick and things, people tend to, they lose a lot of their problems basically. And I think from that point of view, for me, it's become a sort of pretty much a passion now, to really offer that as a sort of immersive opportunity for people. So I'm working with some local GPs to try and offer it basically as a sort of place that people with, learning difficulties, mental health challenges can come, and really just to try and build a community so that people can, if they just want to come and sit and have a cup of tea, they can, or very much like make their own cup of tea from scratch. And I think that's the sort of the beauty of tea as a product, which is what I'm trying to sort of push with my Nuffield, basically. It's a product that I think a lot of different farms, community schemes could take on, and offer that to, their local sort of communities, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess there's so many different stages to that, right? From growing the tea to processing it to then sort of enjoying the tea as a product. So loads of opportunities. What you've just said there made me think about social farming in Ireland. That's a programme that the Health Service and the Agriculture Budget in Ireland fund for people to get out onto farms. So we should chat about that. Very cool.
Yeah. It's along those lines, I think. Yeah.
Very cool. And what do you all think that the wider industry could do to better support neurodivergent entrepreneurs? Who's going to go? Am I going to have to pick someone? Helen, come on.
I've been first every time. This is harsh. So I don't know is the answer to that, because I'm in the industry, but I'm not in the industry. Do you know what I mean? I'm not on farm like everybody else is here. So I think.
Or do you think maybe that's the wrong question, and that people kind of find their own way because they're motivated by their own kind of passions and ways of working, and that maybe we're putting too much pressure almost?
You know what I do think, though, sorry, is that now my brain's actually started working, is that I think what you're doing and the Farmers Weekly and like in terms of raising awareness has a lot to do with it. It's like when we did the mental health campaigns 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe it's probably longer than that actually now, but it just raises awareness, and it's just about talking about it. And then now people are more willing to go, oh yeah, I've got that, and that's fine. And it's just about starting the conversation from my point of view.
Yeah, I guess that was one of the questions that I sort of started out with, was how many people are there that are kind of maybe stuck in a job that they're not enjoying or struggling with, that actually if someone gave them that bit of confidence to say, you could start a business, do you know what, like other people like us have done it, it's not rocket science, and you can take a risk and do that. Maybe other people could find a really kind of fulfilling pathway for themselves, but to do that we need to all share stories and kind of show the way ahead, I guess, for people.
Yeah. And there's a lot of support outside the industry as well. So I get a lot of support from our local growth hub, so the money that comes through the LEP and through FIPL and through all these other places. It doesn't always have to come from within the industry. There's a lot of small business support out there, and lots of groups like Barclays Eagle Lab, NatWest do a group, Lloyds do a group. So it's we don't have to stay within the industry. We can learn a lot from going and talking to other people as well.
Has anyone else benefited from support like that, either kind of financial support or other support from either within or outside of the industry?
Yeah, I think Business Wales for us is amazing. In Wales, we're very, very lucky. And then Farming Connect as well. And I think the sort of point of opening up the conversation is so important. And, if one person goes away from this evening and goes, oh, maybe I am neurodivergent and I'm not lazy and I'm not stupid or thick, or, goes away with a bit of, oh, so there's someone else that feels that, and then has the sort of confidence to bring up that conversation or even look into it privately themselves, to just not necessarily get a diagnosis, but to sort of understand yourself and have strategies, I think. And the more that it's talked about, the more sort of open the industry is to it, I think. And the more education there is, certainly for me, when I'm accessing support through Farming Connect or farming services, if I know that they have an openness and an like a bit of sort of training or education in neurodiversity, I'm way more likely to go to them. So I've been really lucky to access a lot of programs through Farming Connect in Wales that, unless they had the understanding of autism and were able to support with that, there is absolutely no way I would have been able to do. So it's only because they've been supportive and understanding of my sort of quirks and requirements, really.
That's good to hear that they have been supportive, though. That's fab. Brilliant.
From my point of view, number one, I think we need to normalise neurodiversity. You know, it's very normal in the ag industry, and the sooner we don't actually have to call it anything, is the sooner we all move on and just go through acceptance. I think that's important. The other thing is about support networks. It doesn't all have to be organised and you know, make appointments to see some sort of shrink like you imagine. You know, I have so many conversations with so many people that it is a support network of just saying, listen, right? Neurodiversity is what you've got. That's understandable. Now, what you've got to understand is you have a brain that's active and needs feeding and doing all that sort of thing. But what you are is a problem solver. Now, if you have on your farm a land agent, an agronomist, a vet, and everybody else that's writing you prescriptions for the rest of your life, what is your brain doing? And it generally is, sadly, worrying about debt, worrying about something, worrying about all the problems, rather than the some of the solving that you could be doing. And therefore, in actual fact, one of the way of feeding your mind, again, we talk about control, is, again, you know, I wrote a chapter in my book, and this is the longest book in history because I've been writing it for about 5 years. But one of the chapters is who owns your farm. You know, it's amazing the amount of advice people are taking to the point where, you know, they don't do anything. And it's like, no, just feed that brain, and you know, and encourage people to make those decisions, and they get quite excited once they start taking that on. It sounds strange, but it's something. So from my point of view, everybody can be part of a support network.
Cool. That's a great message, Ben. Thanks. We're moving in towards the sort of final section now. So it would be great to be able to give some sort of practical advice and tips for our audience to take away. So does anyone want to share some sort of specific tools or strategies or mindsets that have helped them to succeed in their business?
Can I start with a really basic one that's not necessarily business related, but it's my brain related, which is good food, which is what Sarah tells me all the time. She's like, have you eaten today, Helen? And most of the time last year was no. Or, do you know what I mean? And then this year, very boring this is, I bought a slow cooker. And you know what? It's revolutionized. But it's weird because sometimes I feel like cooking and I will cook for 3 days solid. I will fill the freezer. And then for the next 2 weeks, I do not want to go anywhere near it. And I can just bung good food that's got no preservatives in. Do you know what I mean? Nothing like that. And it's changed the business because it's changed my brain, because my brain feels much freer. So for me, it's about not kicking myself because I can't cook food every day.
Yeah.
But actually putting a strategy in place. So it's a bit of a random one, but
no, that resonates with me loads. And I think with the farm as well, it can make it harder because you're working at different times of the day and you're not always available at a mealtime to cook, but you get really hungry because you've been doing physical work. And I spent like my whole of my kind of teenage years sort of railing against my mum, who was telling me, you know, I think you should have a sandwich. I'm like, I don't need a sandwich. The world is ending. Whereas now I'm kind of like, oh, actually, I did need the sandwich. I finally made that realization. So yeah, if no one takes anything else from this webinar, have the sandwich. Yeah, cool. Other practical strategies that people want to share?
Well, for me, it's having a good support network in the form of mentors, probably very close to Helen with this, but I've got a couple of people that I've known for a while now, and I really, really trust them, built up a really good relationship, and it's invaluable being able to literally bat anything onto them. I'm always good at getting myself in sticky situations and taking on things that I then look back on thinking, what have I done? And it's really good to have that support network that I can literally send them the emails and be like, what do I do about this? And have someone else's input on it. And sometimes it's just talking it through with someone, and it just puts it into a different perspective. And you think, actually, I can cope with this. I know what I'm doing. So for me, that's like essential. And I think, as Ellen said, I'm based in Wales as well, so we work closely with Coine, and they do a lot with mentoring schemes and things. So there's no end of sort of resources that you can utilise from that, which is super handy. I think just picking up on a point Ben made about you don't have to have like access to a shrink or anything, but I know in my own case, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some psychotherapy that I've had over the years. And I don't think there's any shame in reaching out for that at times. And I think we're probably, some of us are always in a position that just to have that support in addition in the background, there's no shame in that. Sometimes it's just what we need to kind of help us through basically and see things from a different perspective. So
absolutely. Cool. What changes would you guys like to see in either agricultural education or in business support? It sounds like you've all had some actually pretty positive experiences, but is there anything that could be done better, do you think?
I really love the phrase of building farmers rather than farm workers.
Yes.
And for me, when I, even if I've got people sort of coming in freelancing, I love that kind of ethos of collaboration rather than competition, and being able to share really, really openly all of the sort of business side of things and the ins and outs of it, because genuinely I am passionate about it, but also I really want to see there to be sort of more sharing of knowledge and more kind of collaboration, I suppose. And though instead of people coming on and you creating them just to be someone that works for you, being able to support that person to then actually go on and do their own thing and develop in their own ways, because that's ultimately the way that the industry continues to develop, thrive and sort of move forward.
Cool, makes sense.
I think it's interesting, like Helen said earlier, we've all got fairly unusual businesses, and going back to what you've just said, Ellen, it's very much we're all like collaborating as well. That's like a key element of all of what we're doing. So that's kind of quite interesting that we're all in that direction. So
absolutely, cool. Has anyone got any final sort of comments to put in before we move over to questions?
Just one extra thing on that whole education piece. I'm not sure whether the colleges and universities are really preparing those that are in that again, this whole who's training the trainers kind of thing, and are they preparing people in this whole new neurodiversity conversation? And my daughter's at college at the moment, and she's surrounded by people, herself included, all on the spectrum sort of thing, and they're all sort of wandering around trying to find themselves a little bit. And I just wonder whether these colleges should have a responsibility to pick this up and from an early age explain what it means and the benefits, and pretty much show them this webinar, I would have said would be a pretty good start, wouldn't it? So that would be something I think, if we could get it into the colleges and I think that would be massively beneficial.
Absolutely.
And I think massively the neurodiversity, but also even just to get into colleges, the ideas of running a business and diversification in farms, to actually put those real ground skills in at a college level of how to build a business plan, how to do a cash flow forecast. I've done an agricultural diploma at college, and there was none of those skills that I actually have gone on to really need. And the skills that I learned there were things that I'd kind of already learned on farm from that hands-on experience. And although it's lovely and a lovely thing to add to a CV, is maybe not the support that I needed. And there was never any conversation really about diversification or what that can look like, or even running a farm business. It was very much how to do the farming.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I just add one last point, Liz, if that's all right, before we get to questions? It's actually a question for Ellen, if that's all right. We're cross-questioning now. Is that, Ellen, you said earlier that if the person who, I don't know if it was employing you or that had been trained in neurodiversity and autism, you would feel much happier. Where are there courses? Are there courses out there where people can go and do like a short course, like maybe Thebes with his ag diversity course? Is there something out there where people could access it? So if we've got people on this call who are farmers or anybody who has a team, or it might be just useful to, if there is anything out there.
It's actually something we've been looking into as a business, just at the moment anyway, just to to onboard some of our other sort of freelance staff. So there's free Open University courses that give you an accreditation that are completely free, that you can complete completely online. So they're actually very available out there. I can find the links maybe to send if anyone wants them. I don't know them off the top of my head, but yeah, Open University, they take about sort of 9 to 12 hours to complete, I think. And there's definitely one that covers both autism and ADHD, and looked, you know, I haven't done it, but looked really, really comprehensive and varied and really educational.
I think it is a gap though within the industry, because in other sectors they would have sort of neurodiversity training provided within businesses, whereas at the moment the ag diversity training that Nuffield do has a small module on neurodiversity, and TIA also have a training program on diversity that includes neurodiversity, but it's only that small subset, whereas I could definitely see scope for a sort of much bigger, more broad-ranging program. So when I was in Australia last year, I visited some pork farms who have an autism and agriculture program, and everyone across the whole of their pig business is given neurodiversity training, and I could definitely see a role for that. But at the moment, there's nothing quite like that here in the UK. But who knows? Watch this space. Let's see what happens in the future, I guess. And obviously, Level the Field is now filling some of that gap with this series of guides that they're producing this year. The first one is sort of an introduction to understanding neurodiversity, and that one's there on the Level the Field website now. So if everyone wants a little sort of start of a 10 on the subject, head to the Level the Field website and check that one out. So thank you, everyone. I think we've had a really wide-ranging discussion there, and now we've got a little bit of time for questions. So audience, if you want to carry on popping your questions in the box, and meanwhile, I've got some questions here that people asked when they registered. So let's dig in. Farming can often be a lonely industry. How does the isolated nature of work in agriculture affect someone with neurodiversity? And does a neurodiverse individual use different coping techniques to others? Who wants to answer that one? Isolation. Is that something you guys have experienced as sort of solo entrepreneurs?
Yes. Yeah. It can be a very lonely life. And a lot of the time I need that, and I thrive on being on my own and working on my own and not having any social contact. Yeah, it's quite easy for me to go a very long time until I realise I haven't actually spoken to anyone or been anywhere outside of the farm for quite a while. And I'm super happy with that. And then other times I really actually sort of crave that connection and need that connection. And I think that's quite hard, because it's almost like within me there's a sort of ebb and flow of wanting and withdrawing from connection with people. And it's just recognizing that you have that, and having people around you that you can reach out to, but who also, they respect the fact that you sometimes need to withdraw to recharge your batteries a bit.
No, that makes sense for sure.
I think in many ways, almost the really good moments in business can be the most lonely, because you're there and you're so pleased with, there's been some things in the last year, that stuff that I never ever would have dreamed of happening, and I'm really, really delighted with and really want to celebrate. And you sort of look to either side and there's sort of no one there to share it with, and that can be quite lonely in some ways. It's almost when stuff's going good that it feels the most isolating in some ways.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to another one just because we're short on time. Do we think that the barriers into agriculture for neurodiverse people are because of the fear of revealing you're neurodiverse, and because of the fear of rejection from an employer? Or is it sort of fear about not knowing how the employer is going to manage the employee and, for example, dyslexia? What do we think about that sort of stigma about disclosure at work, I guess? I guess maybe in a way that's why we've all gone off and set up our own businesses.
Yeah, but also I think that fear is self-fear rather than that's the problem. I think you're overthinking, and this is exactly what neurodiverse people do. They worry what people think. They worry about that. They wind themselves up. They get themselves into stupor. In actual fact, if you're a good person and you work hard, and you're full of bright ideas and all that sort of thing, you'll be embraced into most farming folds, because in actual fact you come and join one of us, kind of thing. So I think that's probably the whole point of what we've been talking about is actually, embrace what you are. It's awesome, and don't let yourself get wound up by the worry of what others might think, because it should be celebrated.
Cool. Yeah. And then what were the stats you said at the beginning, Liz, about from the survey about the percentage neurodiverse people within ag that responded? Because it was quite high, wasn't it?
So the survey had just over 1,700 responses, and just over a third of those people identified as neurodivergent, and then there was a further 25% that said they were unsure. So it's pretty high. The stat that's sort of quoted globally is 15 to 20%. So we're talking about kind of double there.
Yeah. So if you follow on from Ben's point, is the fact that it's probably the thought that's worse than the actual, because the probability is that you're probably going to work for somebody who also has a neurodivergent brain. And like your post recently on whatever social media I saw it on, is about dyslexia and how to make it easier for people. So sometimes it's just worth going, but if you help me do this, this and this, we'll get on fine. So it's a conversation. And to be honest, if you go to employer and say that, and they're not very nice, and to be honest, you probably don't want to be working for them in the first place, whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, would be.
That is very true, Helen. I suppose the other way to flip it on its head is to say that our responsibility as employers is to create environments where everyone could thrive. And in our ideal world, a bit like Ben said earlier, we wouldn't need to disclose our neurodivergence, because, that's what universal design principles are about, right? It's making things accessible to everyone. But sadly, we don't live in that world yet. And so until we've kind of reached that place, I guess we have to navigate with the kind of tools we've got. Right. Let's take another one. How can we better support neurodivergent staff members on our farms, particularly with enabling them to feel safe, secure, inspired, empowered, and independent? That's a lovely one. What would make you guys feel sort of safe and secure and inspired and empowered and independent?
I think giving people space to explore their ideas, basically, and not to feel inhibited to come up and share their ideas, no matter how completely bonkers they might be, or how they might be detracting from what's seen as the sort of progress of the business. Sometimes that's when the best things come about, is when all these abstract ideas can suddenly be formed into something cohesive. So yeah, to give them that space, basically, I think it's a good one.
Anyone else got something to share on that one about how we can sort of support people?
I think that's pretty much nailed it, to be honest. Give somebody some space and let them blossom, and just have a bit of patience to understand what they're talking about, rather than go. I always liken it to one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional thinking kind of thing. And a lot of people that aren't neurodiverse only think on that one plane, and you're probably thinking on a 45th plane, and it's just trying to get that across. And it's like, have a bit of patience, listen to what we're saying, if it and listen again, and patience, I guess, with how we, you get there.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, guys? Helen, have you got anything else you want to kind of finish with? Ellen, any last points, and then we'll wrap up. Are we good?
I think we're good. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time, but I think we've had a really brilliant sort of wide-ranging discussion. It's been brilliant to hear about all your different businesses. Like we said, these are all such different businesses. For me, I think possibly the best kind of takeaway was Ben's point, actually, just about feeding yourself with positivity, because that's a lesson for life for everyone, right? No matter what kind of brain you've got, you can't go wrong if you fill it with positivity. I want to say a really big thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. I hope that the discussion might have inspired some of you to take a leap within your own businesses, maybe. I'd like to say thank you to our Level the Field partners, Arla, DEFRA, DeLacy Executive, Frontier and Lantra, who've made the campaign possible and are helping us to raise the profile of this subject. Thank you to our supporters, Leaf, TIA, FCN, the CLA and Moore Valley Farmers for helping us to share these messages. But thank you especially to our brilliant panellists for sharing their experiences so openly. We really appreciate it. There's lots more Level the Field content scheduled for the rest of this year. The first guide is there on the website, and there's another one coming out very soon about neurodiversity friendly recruitment. So keep an eye out for that one coming out in the next couple of weeks. There's another webinar later in the year on mental health too. So keep eyes peeled for that one. And we'd love to hear your campaign, your feedback on the campaign as it progresses. So please do keep in touch with us. But thanks so much everyone for joining us tonight, and